Hello, hello. Welcome to the show. My guest today is Michelle Yu, founder and CEO of Josie, a company dedicated to helping working parents thrive, and a mother of two. We talk about the common needs of working parents, how to advocate for yourself with your manager, the mental health of working parents, and much more. By the way, this episode is coming out on Michelle's birthday and my wife's birthday. So happy birthday to Michelle and happy birthday to my wife, who claims she listens to the show sometimes. I don't know if that's how she's going to spend her birthday, but either way, happy birthday. My name is Anthony Franzese. You're listening to the Successful Working Parents podcast, where we talk to working parents about how they're able to balance it all and still thrive. If you enjoy the episode, please subscribe. Anyway, on to the show. Welcome back to the Successful Working Parents podcast, the podcast where we talk to successful working parents. My guest today, she is the co-founder and CEO of Josie, mother of two. Ladies and gentlemen, Michelle Yu. Michelle, welcome to the show.
Hello. Thank you for having me, Anthony.
Yes, my pleasure. Excited to talk to you today. If you would, why don't we start off with just a quick background on your career?
Yes, happy to do so. Well, first of all, I wanted to thank you for having me, that you consider me a successful working parent.
A lot of people have a hard time with that first part, but I would consider you one.
You know what? Thank you for saying that. Okay, so yes, my career. All right, sure. So I have a long career in management consulting prior to launching Josie. That was my primary profession. I was a traveling consultant, started my career at Deloitte, and was in their healthcare practice. And then moved on to a few other firms and mostly worked with hospitals and health systems as my primary clients. So I was a strategy consultant. So I'd get on a plane Monday, fly to a client, work till Thursday, come back, did the whole shebang. That was my career, my identity. I loved it.
Yeah.
I'm one of those weird people that like loved the travel, and I loved like being with teams in hotel rooms, like at the whiteboard at like 11 p.m. trying to help our clients figure out how to strategically grow. And so that was the majority of my career, always in healthcare, loved it so much. And then I launched Josie about 2.5 years ago. And I could talk a little bit more about the evolution towards that. But the main thing I wanted to emphasize was my identity prior to doing so as a consultant was huge to me. And I loved it.
Great. And tell us a little bit more about your role as a mother. You have two kids, is that right?
You're right. Yes, I have a 4 and a 6-year-old. My 6-year-old is Theo, and my 4-year-old is Josie, which the company is named after. And she's actually named after my mom, who is an entrepreneur herself. So it kind of runs in the family. And yes, and they are awesome. They are awesome, and they're also crazy. Which I think maybe a lot of your listeners might be able to relate to that.
Yeah. How was the jump from 1 to 2?
Ooh, it was rough.
Yeah.
I think it was also exacerbated because I had Josie on July 21st, 2020.
Yeah. Tough time.
Yes. The hospital lifted the policy where like your partner couldn't be in the room with you like 10 days before I had her. So luckily enough, I was able to have my partner with me, but like it was right at the height of the pandemic.
Yeah, that's a crazy time to have kids.
Yes. Every time I meet another 2020 mom, like a mom who had someone a baby in 2020, we're like immediately bonded.
Yeah, for sure. So, all right, well, let's talk a little bit about Josie. So, was it something about having your second kid that inspired you to go on this entrepreneurial path, or what brought about the creation of Josie?
Yeah. So I would say it was kind of a long journey to launching the company, and the seed was planted in 2018, actually, when I had my son Theo. I was, essentially a junior partner at my firm at that time, had really high profile client engagements, loved what I was doing, was pregnant, very naively thought that I would have my baby, go back to work, things would more or less be the same. And I say this a lot to when people ask me this question. I truly think that there was a sense of arrogance there. Like I was very driven, very type A, very organized. I'm like, I can do this. This will be just fine. It'll be the same. And it's funny too, because like I had friends that had children, and I think sometimes we don't talk a lot about like the struggle, like what someone's expecting. And part of it, I think, is because you don't want to scare them. You don't want to be like, oh, just so you know, this is going to be really, really hard. And then afterwards, like, you're talking about it. And like, I get that. Like, you don't want to stress out like an expecting mom.
Sure.
So like, I just really thought, very naively thought it was going to be like super easy.
It's not so easy, is it?
I was like, oh yeah, like it'll be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I had a total of 12 weeks of leave, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, wow, that's, plenty of time.
Yeah.
Um, and then I struggled big time. It was like such a shock to the system when baby arrived. So many emotions. In hindsight, I think, I definitely had mental health challenges, but no one, no one had talked about it. And I was like, there's no way I shouldn't be experiencing this. So I'm going to ignore that. Totally ignored it. And then I went back to work and like immediately back on the road and traveling. And it was so hard, pumping in airports. And like, I had breastfeeding goals. I wasn't meeting them. I was so tired, sleep deprived. I didn't feel like I was on my A game. And like, I'm like one of those people that like is really hard on myself if I don't feel like I'm 110%. So I kind of spiraled a little bit and it just didn't, it was a shaky return at best, I would say. And in consulting, like it's a wonderful profession, but the reality is there's still not a lot of women and new parents in like leadership roles. And on my immediate team and strategy in particular, I was really the only mom with a young baby at home, and my managers were awesome. My colleagues are awesome, but they didn't know how to support me. Um, so that was really challenging. So the seed was planted then when I was like, there's got to be a better way and a better way to support people as they make this huge life transition, because it's not small. It's like you're literally taking on a completely new identity. And I know you've talked about this with others on your podcast, Anthony, about the identity shift that
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah.
And so I really, struggled then, had my second in 2020, struggled again. This time I got a little bit smarter, was a little proactive in seeking support. And that was super helpful, but there was still a gap, especially when it came to my career and going back. And so that kind of all led to eventually the founding of the company. I just grew passionate about this and started reading data and research about how important this phase was and how it can be a career booster versus something that takes away from it. And oh my gosh, I'm talking a lot right now because I'm so excited about it. So let me stop.
No, I mean, that's great. And so, yeah, if you just sum up a little bit more about what does Josie do? So you have these experiences, you realize
Yes.
that you feel like there's a gap there, and what do you decide is the way Josie is now? Is that how it originally was, or what was your first idea of like how you can address this gap?
Yeah. Great question. So yes, we've gone through few different iterations of the offering, and like I think many startups, we started with piloting, with a group of parents and trying out different things. We ultimately landed on this program that offers both the mental health support and the career support.
Yeah.
And the way we did that is we worked with in our pilots hundreds of parents, and often what we found, a couple of things we found in those early days. One is that the concerns that parents have span a variety of things, and often you aren't able to get all those needs met in one place. So everything from proactively planning, how am I going to pump when I go back to work, to like I'm mentally and emotionally like I need to get regulated. I need something to help me get my head back in the game. And then all the way to like career related things like how do I talk to my manager about, I need to pick up my kid now at 5 o'clock. And they're pretty used to me emailing back after 5 o'clock,
Yeah.
questions like that. And so we, after, going through multiple waves of pilot, landed on this particular way of doing things. And it has had tremendous results. And our clients have amazing testimonials that I can share. But that's kind of essentially how it evolved in our core offering. And
What
then, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
what would you say was something that really surprised you about the data that once you got dug into what working parents are looking for? What surprised you the most?
Yeah. Okay. So that's a great question. So, as you know, most coaching companies, like if you think about a Better Up or you think about, I don't know, Ezra, I think is another one. Oftentimes, or even if you work with a coach individually, oftentimes you're bringing up a topic, right? Like it's open coaching. And so we actually started off with that model. Like you're a new parent or you're an expecting parent, come to the coach and you can bring up whatever topic you want. What we learned in those early waves of doing it that way is a lot of parents just don't know what they don't know, and they
Mhm.
need that little extra support with someone proactively guiding them through something.
Yeah.
And so we actually developed a curriculum that helps that person proactively think about the things that they should be thinking about that maybe they didn't think about, with room, of course, for them to bring up things that are very personalized to them. And so that kind of surprised me because I was kind of thinking people would be like really open to just like, let me call any old person and just like, I have this thing I want to talk about. And so let's do it, you know? And that's really, I've learned over time what EAPs are kind of for, you know, like you can have, you know, someone on the other end of the line to talk through something on your mind. But this is much more proactive in the way that we support people.
Yeah. I mean, every company has an EAP, but they're usually pretty underutilized.
Underutilized. Yeah.
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 So it's good to have something a little more proactive like this. So are there multiple tracks I could choose from, or if let's say my company offers me Josie, am I doing this kind of one way?
Yes. So we have multiple programs. Sorry, I just got an error message on my screen, but hopefully you're not seeing it.
Okay.
We
No,
can
that's okay on my end. Okay. What does it
Okay,
say?
great.
What does it say?
It says quota exceeded error. You have run out of free disk space to save a local backup of this data. Okay,
Okay.
that's fine.
That should be okay.
Sorry. Okay, sorry about that. Let me X that out. Okay, restarting here.
Yeah.
Um, yes, we have multiple programs that you can choose from, and it just really depends on the level of support you need. Our most popular program is parental leave programming. We have a 3-session program and a 6-session program that starts before you go on leave and then picks back up when you return to work. So that is by far our most popular. But we also have programming for people who are beyond that early parental leave period as well. We have working parent boot camps that are career focused and mental health focused, and yeah, so lots of variety to choose from.
You mentioned before some of the work that you do with managers. You mentioned also your experience. Your manager at the time didn't have kids. Mine did, and I found like that alone has been a
Yeah.
huge help when you're on leave and you work with people that have kids, or just in general if you're a working parent and your manager has kids. So how do you help people that become a working parent set expectations with their manager, or do you work directly with the managers? How do you see that working?
Yes. Great question. So yes, we do actually work directly with managers, and I've learned so much from doing this. I actually think it's one of my favorite things that we do at Josie is that we do provide manager training and support. And there's a few things that I've learned along the way in terms of just managers in general and what their needs are. So one is that there's just a gap in manager support, full stop, right? Like
Yeah.
when it comes to organizations and being able to give them tools to effectively lead. And we're asking so much of managers, like coach, mentor, delegate, drive to outcomes, you know, be a great, example and role model. You know, there's like so much we're asking of managers. And people are often launched into these positions with very little training and support. So that's just more of a general statement, something that I've noticed that a lot of organizations are prioritizing manager training and support. As a quick aside, you know, I attended this HR conference, and General Stan McChrystal was a speaker, and he was talking about how with AI kind of being able to take away a lot of tasks, right? That gives people the opportunity to do the things that humans should be doing. What that's doing is it's moving very quickly, and then people are able to then rise into leadership more roles more quickly as well. But the training and that you need to kind of assume those leadership positions effectively is not at pace with the change. And so you're getting a lot of people who are, you know, this is awesome. You can rise, you can start leading teams, etc. But we're not giving them the tools to do so. Anyways, I digress. But yes, we work directly with managers in how they support people through this major life transition, through group trainings and one-on-one. And the number one thing we always talk about is, you know, one, care for yourself first. You can't effectively lead unless you're caring for yourself. I think a lot of manager trainings are focused on here's what you need to do. Like, do this, you know, adopt this new skill, you know, like, you know, all these things that you have for others, right? But we don't talk about caring for yourself. So that's number one. And then we kind of go through what we call care studies and we walk through scenarios. So, and we train them that way. So, which is really fun. And people love that because it's like, oh, yeah, I've been there before.
Yeah.
We help them think through how they'd approach it.
So, like, I'm a manager, and let's say I don't have kids, but you would kind of show me through a scenario of what it would be like to be a working parent, or what does that look like?
Great question. So here's an example. Whether you have kids or not, first of all, you can attend one of our training sessions and you'll probably get something out of it. Because here's the thing, even if you are a parent, that does not necessarily mean that like you can't effectively lead other working parents.
Yeah.
So
Or that
and
you're a good parent, right?
yeah, yeah. So anyone can attend, but like here's an example. So a scenario we'll walk through is you have two team members and one of them is going on a parental leave. You yourself are a working parent. And then the other team member who's not going on a leave is not a parent themselves, but they're going to be asked to cover the work of the person going out. How do you navigate this scenario? The person who's covering has expressed some hesitation or resentment for taking over that work. The person that's going out is nervous. They maybe have a performance review coming up, and you have to navigate all of that. So, how do you do that effectively? And so, we'll walk through the perspectives of each person and give them tools for how you would effectively navigate those interpersonal dynamics.
I like that. Okay, so let's say I'm not fortunate enough to have Josie at my disposal, and I'm just
Yeah.
some working schmo, and I have a kid. How can and my manager doesn't have kids. What are some things you'd recommend for how working parents can advocate for themselves with their managers?
Yeah. Yes. So, there are several things that we coach our working parents on, but one of them is to be very disciplined about and clear on what your ultimate goals are in any given role. I
Yeah.
think sometimes we get caught up in like the day-to-day tasks, and like what ends up happening is you aren't able to attend a meeting, or you're not able to like answer an email at a certain time, and then people get caught up on like that change. But what's most important is you need to sit down with your manager and clarify what your ultimate goals are in your role, and then make sure that you're hitting those and be very, very close on tracking what that progress is. Takes the focus off the tasks and refocuses on the ultimate outcomes. And so if you're not clear about that right now, as a working parent, just be sure to, maybe it's time to actually sit down with your manager and clarify what those things are. So that would, I think, is one of the biggest things. And then I think the second piece is to also just build awareness as to why or why not your manager may or may not be supportive of you. That manager is a person and a human too. And I think oftentimes we may forget that, they're asked doing all these things. So what we talk about in our care studies too is as the team member to remember that, build awareness of what might be driving your own manager's behaviors, right? Like take a beat and say, okay, well, maybe why are they doing this, and making sure that you understand that.
Right. So what about maybe during the interview process? Are there things that we could do to set boundaries or just set clear expectations around, hey, I have a kid and this is kind of how I need things to be?
Oh, like when you're interviewing for a new job.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So first of all, I would say, this is something if you're expecting, or if this is something that you're at all nervous about bringing up, make sure you have an offer in hand before you ask these questions. I think that you do not want any of that to cloud the hiring organization's decision as to whether or not they want to bring you in. When it comes to understanding that, there's a couple of things that I would suggest. One is ask the hiring manager if there's maybe somebody else in the org that you could talk to that's more of a peer, that maybe is a parent themselves. And so that you can have kind of more a safer space to ask them, hey, like, I'm considering taking this role. Could you tell me a little bit about the culture of your organization and what it's like to be a parent at the org? What are some of the norms? that when it comes to being a parent at this particular organization. So I think that's really one great way to do that. If you met your direct manager and you feel comfortable, you can ask them more general questions like, can you tell me a little bit about what supports or benefits are in place for employees? It doesn't have to be like specifically about parents, and kind of see what they're able to share. And then if you're not comfortable, you can ask the HR manager themselves as well.
What is something about Josie that I haven't asked you yet that you want to make sure the audience knows?
Ooh, I think you should ask about our work with healthcare organizations.
Okay. Well, you can just tell me. I don't have to ask you. Tell me
Um,
about your work with healthcare organizations.
yes, 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 yes. So this is something that's very near and dear to my heart because when I was in consulting, most of our clients were hospitals and health systems and medical groups. So I've known for a long time just the challenges when it comes to provider burnout and wellness, and especially those that are working with patients every day, and the level of stress that can cause. So one of the things that I started to do when we launched Josie is just better understand how this impacts the healthcare workforce. And something that I cite a lot is there was a study from the University of Michigan a couple of years ago that noted 4 in 10 female physicians will either leave or scale back in their careers within 6 years of residency, because of family building. And so that has huge, massive implications for health equity. It has massive implications for just having a diverse workforce when it comes to our care. And so we have launched partnerships with both an academic medical center, a large health system in the Texas area, and we're starting to bring our services directly to frontline healthcare workers, which has been so much fun. And it's so great to see the impact. They have such unique challenges. And I can go into more detail on that, but I'm so proud of that work we're doing and excited to expand our impact there.
Awesome. That's great. So you're a working parent yourself. You were a working parent before you started Josie, and you're obviously still one. So how is that? First of all, how has that experience been from employee to employer and business owner as a parent? Has it been? I mean, obviously, when you're starting a company, you're a lot of long days and long nights, and so
Yeah.
though obviously you kind of own your own time. So, what was your experience like going from working parent to entrepreneurial working parent?
Yeah, great question. So a lot of changes. I will say when it comes to the sheer amount of, work I do and roughly like how I, outside of the travel difference, it's relatively the same. Worked a lot as a consultant from a
Hmm.
pure like hours and time perspective, and I still do.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I love my career. I loved my career pre Josie. I love my career now being an entrepreneur. So when something excites you that much and that you find so much purpose in, like it's like doesn't even feel like it's a challenge to put in the hours. Um, I would say the biggest difference is how much Josie has helped me open up my creative side. I think as a consultant, I one of my favorite things that I did as a consultant was create PowerPoint decks for my clients and be able to tell.
If you like PowerPoints, there's nothing wrong with that.
I know I would talk about this all the time. Creating slides, telling a story, being able to visually tell the story, and also write it in a way that was compelling. Let's go my favorite things.
Hmm.
Um, but it was rather limited in terms of like how creative you can get. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like pretty much the same formula with like each client. There's like 4 steering committees, there's 4 decks. It's like
Right. Right. Right.
roughly the same template of what you follow in terms of
Hmm.
how you want to think about the analysis and all that good stuff. But
Yeah.
being an entrepreneur now, like, oh my gosh, like talk about like learning how to tell your story, getting to do podcasts like this. Um, Learning Canva. Love Canva, by the way. Shout
Yeah.
out to Canva.
Yeah.
Um,
I use it for some thumbnails.
I love that. Love
Yeah.
that. Being able to create content, being able to learn from our clients and then make our content even better, being able to create workshops and trainings that resonate with people and that tell a story that draws people in. Like, oh my gosh, how fun.
Yeah,
I like am having so much fun doing this every day. And that I would say is like the biggest difference between then and now.
that's great. As a I don't know if like a Josie user, but as someone who obviously has access to Josie and the learnings from it and the data, what's the biggest thing that you've taken away and you've applied as a working parent? Obviously, you don't have a manager, so what's something that you found a lot of value in?
Yes, 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 yes. And I feel like regardless of where you are, you always have a manager, right? I answer to our board.
That's true. Yeah.
So I'm like, there's definitely still a manager
Uh-huh.
involved here.
Yeah.
And yeah, and that's something that, I think about a lot. But yeah, oh my gosh, so many things. So I'm a user of Josie myself. I went through the program myself because I needed to make sure that this thing was like, exceptional. Um, and so I think there's a couple of things that I have really stuck with me when it comes to the lessons we teach at Josie. So one of the big things that we do with our clients is we build a lot of um, emotional awareness. So getting more intentional about pausing and understand and becoming aware of your feelings and the why behind those feelings. That simple act in and of itself can completely change a lot of things. It can change how you react to things. It can change the ultimate action you take and ultimately the outcome. So that's like a huge part of our curriculum and how we help our clients build self awareness and be able to better emotionally regulate, be able to make smarter decisions, get smarter about things that actually matter to them. I think that's huge. The second piece I would say is we're big on understanding your personal values. And so we make every client name their top values as a working parent in that season of life, knowing what those are. And they can change, that they can change in different seasons of life, but knowing what those are and using those every day to kind of guide how you approach things. I'm not perfect at it, but I try and give myself grace when I screw up, which happens a lot. Um, but I would say those are a couple of things that have really stuck with me and kind of core to some of the ways that we support our clients.
Awesome. Okay, we're gonna move into the final segment called Michelle's Advice Corner. So I'm gonna ask you for some advice on a few
Oh my
topics.
gosh. Okay. Okay. Sorry to the listeners in advance.
The reactions when I mention the advice corner is always funny as well. People have very different. Some people are so pumped to give an unsolicited advice, and some
Uh-huh.
people are like you are just like,
Like
who am
me, I'm
I?
like,
Who am I to
oh
give advice?
no.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, what's your best piece of advice for working parents?
Oh my gosh. I would say uh, tell yourself this every day. You're doing the best you can.
That's a good one. What's your advice for self care?
Ooh, first read Real Self Care by Dr. Pooja Lakshmi, who says that self care is not a thing to do, rather a way to be.
Mm, haven't
Mhm.
heard of that one. What advice do you have for balancing work time and family time?
Oh, balance is that word, right? Can be triggering sometimes. Maybe I would say don't necessarily think about it as balance. Think about it as this thing that ebbs and flows. And you know yourself best, what your values and priorities are. If you stick to that, you're doing great.
What advice do you have for somebody who is feeling entrepreneurial and wants to try and make it out on their own?
Oh, I have so many for this one though. um, well, I would say one is I'll share one, the most important one. Be sure that whatever your entrepreneurial ambitions are, whatever you're going to put your heart and soul into, make sure that that thing is so damn important to you that like you would sacrifice for it. Like, don't become an entrepreneur just because you want to become an entrepreneur. Like, do it because you care about a problem so, so much that it has to be fixed. Like, the
Yeah,
world is going to be a better place if you fix it.
yeah. I can tell you obviously really love what you're doing, so I'm sure that helps fuel you in those
It
tougher
has to.
times.
You'll burn out really fast and you're not going to want to keep going if you don't
Yeah.
care about it enough.
Other than Josie, what is a parenting resource you'd recommend? Whether it's a book or a podcast or
I have so many. Oh gosh. Okay. All right. So I'll start with, because it's top of mind, I'm doing an event with this awesome platform, community platform called Augie next week. AUGGIE. Free community platform for parents. So check that out. Um, I would also say, you know what? I'll actually share this with your listeners. We have a whole database called I Wish I Had This that we created via a campaign, online campaign last year, where we surveyed a bunch of working parents and asked them what resources they wish they had known about when they first became parents. It's a free database. So I'll share with you the link, Anthony, if you want to share it in the show notes or wherever.
yeah, yeah, sure.
People can just look at the top resources that are recommended, and they're all in there.
Okay, love that. What advice you have for somebody who feels like they're not a great parent?
Oh, yeah. Well, I will say I feel that sometimes. And I would say that that's not true. That's a narrative that you told yourself. And first, like, it's okay, you're thinking that. But what is driving you to think that? Take a beat and ask yourself, why do you think you are not a good parent? And start getting facts. And then I think quickly what you can maybe see is maybe those aren't really true. I think oftentimes we're comparing ourselves to other parents versus being guided by our own compass and our own values. So take a moment and ask yourself why and understand why you think that. And then I think you can quickly disprove some of the things you may actually find.
Hmm. What is the best advice you've ever received?
Oh gosh, like ever?
Yeah, ever.
Oh
Or
man.
whatever what comes to mind when I say that.
Oh gosh. That's a tough one. I don't know if I have a good answer to that. I've gotten a lot of really great advice. Um, well, I'll share one. I don't know if it's like the greatest ever. I think I would need more time on that. But um, I think when it comes to being an entrepreneur, it's I think one of the best pieces of advice I ever heard, especially as like people told me that I need to get myself out there more and like tell my story and like be on LinkedIn and be on podcasts like this. I mean, when I started off, I like was really nervous to be on these things. Um, and like honestly, one of the best pieces of advice was it's not about you. It's like it's not really about me. It's about a bigger purpose. And like if even one person out there may like feel like heard or seen based on anything I say, that's great.
Yeah.
This is not about, um, some popularity contest or anything like that. So I would say that one more recently has really resonated with me.
Mm. Well, other than that, what advice would you give your former self?
Oh, I would say be kinder to yourself. I can be really hard on myself. I will spin in my mind for days if I feel like I didn't do something right. I can't stop thinking about it.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and get help if like you can't find yourself getting out of that rut. Like it's not you, like maybe you just need professional help, you know? Like and it's okay. It's okay to do that, you know? So I would say that's something that I wish I had, maybe done a little sooner.
Yeah. Last question. By the time this episode comes out, my daughter will probably be like 21 months old. So, what advice do you have for me as a
Gosh,
father of a 21-month-old daughter?
so cute. I mean, just enjoy it. These are the years where she still likes you.
Yes.
Just
I do try to keep that in mind.
I'm just kidding. I'm
Yeah.
just kidding. No, yeah, no, just enjoy every moment. Snuggle when you can. Like, it's crazy how quickly like that goes away. Even though I like still have a 4 and 6 year old, I already feel like they're slipping away, Anthony.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing I also wanted to cover before we go is the the idea of mixing in the mental health support with the executive coaching support. I think that
Yeah,
that's pretty interesting. Mental health is something that I think the stigma by now is lifted around it, but it's just something that you're seeing more and more about, and we're finally open to talking about the importance of it and things like that. And so just would love to hear a little bit more about your thoughts on the mental health aspect of things and how you've been able to integrate the two.
Yes. Thank you for saying that, by the way. I do think there has been a big shift in the stigma around talking about it and getting support. And there's more resources than ever, which is awesome. There's a lot of companies that I see popping up that are getting the access to people faster, quicker, easier. Um, but it's not 100% there yet. There is still, I think, hesitation among fathers too. There can be postpartum anxiety and postpartum depression, and I have not seen as much research on that or studies. I think it's underreported and underdiagnosed. So I think we still have work to do, I will say. Even though it's getting better, I think there is still work to do in this space. We're not quite there yet, I would
Yeah.
say. So I, yeah, but I among our clients, like I just see the impact you can have when you are able to get that kind of support.
So do you have in this curriculum, am I talking to a therapist and then talking to an executive coach, or am I just talking to the coach that has like the therapist sort of guidance, or how are you
Yeah,
actually integrating it?
great question. So you, in most of our journeys, will talk to both. We have therapists. All of our mental health coaches are therapists, trained
Mhm.
therapists, and
Yeah.
then all of our career coaches are trained career coaches.
Yep.
And so you will speak to both.
Mhm.
If you want a more career focused track, you can do that. If you want a more mental health focused track, you can do that as well.
Mm. And is it technically subclinical, or is it actually like kind of therapy?
It's actually does not, because it's a coaching capacity. So that way our coaches can practice or can see clients across state lines.
Right, right, right.
It's all very clear upfront. This is a coaching session, not a therapy session.
Gotcha.
And so that is different. I'm glad you brought this up, because here's something else I've noticed is not every new parent necessarily needs therapy. Now, if
Sure.
you need it, that's really important. You should get therapy. But for many parents, they're kind of stuck in this in between where it's like, I know I don't need nothing. Like, this is really hard just completely on my own. And like, just dialing my best friend is like, like that person also has limited time and it's not quite cutting it. Um, but I also don't need 6 months of biweekly therapy either. Um, so I think we fit this nice, like, in between of being able to give you something that is just enough for your support. And all of our therapists are also trained. Like, if they notice something and someone may need more support, they can direct them.
Right. Awesome. Well, this has been a great conversation, Michelle. Where can people go to learn more about you or connect with you? Anything you'd like to share or promote?
Thank you, Anthony. Yeah, you can go to myjosie.com to learn more about us. You can always reach me at michelle@myjosie.com. And I'll share the link to the I Wish I Had This database.
Yeah.
Please check it out. You can also add your own resources in it. So, like,
Mm.
there's a form at the top. So if there's something that you love, I actually don't know if this podcast is in there, Anthony. So I'm going to add
Wow. Yes, please do.
it because I did. We launched it before I met you. So
Oh,
we'll add
okay.
your podcast to it.
Awesome. Well, definitely check it out now, everybody. Michelle, you, everybody, thank you so much.
Thank you, Anthony. It was a lot of fun.